Stop for a moment. Before you scroll again, just pause here. I know you weren't planning to stop on this video. You were probably just moving through your feed like usual. One more post, one more video, one more distraction. But something made you slow down. Maybe you didn't even notice it at first. Maybe it was just a small hesitation, a quiet feeling that said, wait. That feeling matters more than you think, because not every moment of interruption is random. Sometimes the quietest pauses carry the most important messages, and if you're still here listening right now, there's a reason for that. You may not see it clearly yet. You may even feel a little unsure why this moment feels different. But deep down, something inside you recognized it. Life has a strange way of rushing forward so quickly that we stop noticing the small signals trying to reach us. The missed plan, the unexpected delay, the thought that keeps returning late at night. The moment when everything becomes quiet and you feel something trying to get your attention. Most people ignore those moments. They scroll past them. They move on quickly. They fill the silence with noise again. But every now and then, someone stops. Someone listens. And that small decision changes everything. Right now, you might feel like this is just another video. But what if it isn't? What if this moment, right here, was one of those quiet interruptions meant specifically for you? Not to scare you, not to pressure you, but to help you notice something important that has been trying to reach your heart for a long time. So before you move on, before the noise of the world pulls your attention somewhere else, just stay here for a moment longer. Because sometimes the message that changes everything doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives quietly, in a moment just like this one.
Sometimes the way God gets our attention is not through loud miracles or dramatic moments. It begins quietly, with small interruptions that seem ordinary at first, a delay you didn't expect, a conversation that suddenly feels meaningful, a thought that keeps returning even when you try to ignore it. Most people move past those moments quickly. They explain them away as coincidence or distraction. They keep moving forward with the same pace, the same habits, the same routines. But every now and then, something inside you notices. You pause a little longer. You feel that strange awareness that something deeper might be happening beneath the surface of ordinary life. That feeling is not weakness. It is awareness. Because God rarely forces attention. He invites it. He places quiet signals along your path. Moments where life slows just enough for you to notice that something inside you is stirring. And if you're honest with yourself, you have felt that stirring before. There have been moments when your thoughts became unusually clear. Moments when something inside you gently asked questions you couldn't easily dismiss. Questions like, why do I feel restless even when everything seems fine? Why do certain things that once satisfied me no longer feel the same? Why do I feel like something is calling me to pay attention? Those questions do not appear randomly. They appear when your heart begins to wake up to something deeper. For a long time, you may have tried to ignore that feeling, not because you wanted to run away from truth, but because paying attention to it might mean change. And change can feel uncomfortable. It asks you to look honestly at the direction your life is moving. It asks you to consider whether you are truly listening to what matters most. But here is something important to understand. When God begins trying to get your attention, it is not because He wants to disturb your life. It is because He wants to guide it. The interruptions that feel inconvenient at first are often invitations. invitations to slow down, invitations to notice what has been quietly forming inside your heart. And if you think back carefully, you may realize that these interruptions have been appearing more often lately. Little moments where you suddenly become aware that something deeper is happening beneath the surface of your everyday life. Moments where the noise fades just enough for a quiet question to rise. And that question is still waiting, not demanding an answer yet, just waiting for you to notice it. One of the most surprising ways God begins to reach someone is through restlessness, not chaos, not fear. Restlessness. A quiet feeling that something in your life no longer fits the way it used to. You may still be doing the same things, living in the same places, following the same routines, but something inside you has started to shift. The things that once distracted you easily now feel strangely empty. The habits that once felt normal now feel heavier than before. And sometimes you find yourself asking questions that didn't used to matter to you. Why does this feel different now? Why can't I ignore this feeling anymore? Why do I feel like something is trying to wake me up? That kind of restlessness is not a mistake. It is often the beginning of awareness. Because when God wants to redirect someone's life, He rarely begins by forcing a dramatic change. He begins by changing what satisfies your heart. Things that once kept you comfortable start losing their hold. Distractions begin to feel hollow. The noise that once filled your mind becomes easier to recognize, and slowly, your attention begins turning towards something deeper. At first, this process can feel confusing. You may think something is wrong. You might wonder if you are simply overthinking things or becoming too sensitive to small moments. But the truth is, this is often the first sign that your heart is waking up. God does not always speak through loud events. Sometimes He speaks through the quiet discomfort that makes you stop and ask honest questions. That discomfort is not meant to punish you. It is meant to prepare you. Because once your heart begins to recognize that something deeper is calling for your attention, your life can no longer continue exactly the same way. You begin to notice things differently. You start seeing patterns in your choices. You recognize moments where you ignored what you knew was right, simply because it felt easier at the time. And awareness like that can feel heavy, but it is also powerful, because awareness is the first step toward direction. Without it, life simply continues on autopilot. With it, you begin to see the possibility of change, and the moment you become aware that God might be trying to reach your attention, something inside you begins to listen more carefully than before. Once that awareness begins, something interesting happens. You start noticing things you never paid attention to before. Moments that once passed quickly now seem to pause for a second longer. A conversation suddenly feels more meaningful. A verse, a thought, or even a simple sentence stays in your mind long after you hear it. It's almost as if life begins highlighting certain moments for you. At first, you might dismiss them. You tell yourself it's just coincidence, just timing, just your imagination. But the more these moments happen, the harder it becomes to ignore the pattern. You start realizing that something inside you is becoming more attentive, more awake. And that is exactly how God often works. He doesn't usually begin with overwhelming signs. Instead, He begins with small nudges, a quiet thought that returns again and again, a moment where you suddenly feel the weight of a decision, a sense that something deeper is trying to guide you. These nudges are gentle on purpose, because God values your willingness He doesn't force attention. He invites it. And the more you notice these invitations, the clearer they begin to feel. You may begin to recognize moments when your conscience speaks a little louder. Moments when you sense that continuing the same direction might not be what your heart truly wants anymore. This can feel uncomfortable, not because something bad is happening, but because awareness brings honesty. You begin seeing parts of your life with clearer eyes. Habits you once justified start feeling different. Choices you once ignored now stand out more clearly. It's not that you suddenly became a different person. It's that you began seeing your life more honestly. And honesty is where real change begins. God doesn't awaken your attention just to make you uncomfortable. He does it to show you that your life still has direction, waiting to be discovered. That you are not stuck in the same patterns forever. That even the smallest moment of awareness can become the beginning of a new path. And sometimes, the very fact that you're noticing these things now is the clearest sign that something deeper is already unfolding in your life. When awareness begins to grow, another change slowly follows. You start paying closer attention to your own heart. Not just your actions, but your motives. The reasons behind the choices you make. The thoughts you allow to stay in your mind. The direction your life is quietly moving each day. This kind of reflection can feel unfamiliar at first, because most of life is lived in motion. People move from one responsibility to the next, one distraction to another, rarely stopping long enough to ask deeper questions. But when God begins reaching someone's attention, He often slows that motion down. Not by stopping life completely, but by creating moments where reflection becomes unavoidable. You may notice times when silence suddenly feels heavier. Moments when you sit alone and realize your mind keeps returning to the same thoughts. Questions about purpose. Questions about direction. Questions about whether you are truly living the life you were meant to live. These questions are not meant to confuse you. They are meant to wake you up. Because when someone begins asking honest questions, they become open to honest answers. And God often waits for that openness. He waits for the moment when a person becomes willing to pause and listen, rather than rush forward blindly. You may even remember times recently when something inside you whispered that a certain decision didn't feel right, or that a certain path no longer brought the peace it once did. Those moments are important. They are signals that your heart is becoming sensitive again, not hardened by routine, not distracted by noise, sensitive enough to recognize guidance when it appears. And the more you listen to that quiet awareness, the clearer it becomes. Because God doesn't shout over the noise of life. He often speaks through the still moments that most people overlook. Moments when your heart becomes quiet enough to recognize that something meaningful is happening beneath the surface. And if you've been experiencing more of those moments lately, it may not be coincidence. It may be the beginning of something much more important than you expected. As this awareness continues to grow, something else begins to happen. You start noticing the difference between noise and truth. For a long time, life may have felt crowded with voices, opinions from other people, expectations about success, advice about what you should pursue, what you should ignore, what you should value. All of those voices can make it difficult to hear the quiet direction forming inside your own heart. But when God begins to get someone's attention, He often starts separating those voices, not by removing them completely, but by helping you recognize which ones truly matter. you begin to notice that some influences in your life leave you feeling drained. Conversations that once felt normal now feel empty. Distractions that once filled your time suddenly feel less satisfying. At the same time, something else becomes clear. Moments of quiet reflection start bringing a different kind of peace. You begin to realize that slowing down does not mean falling behind. It means paying attention to the direction your life is moving, paying attention to what strengthens your heart and what weakens it. This shift can feel uncomfortable because recognizing truth often requires letting go of illusions that certain habits were harmless, illusions that certain paths would eventually bring fulfillment. But truth has a way of gently removing those illusions, not to discourage you, but to guide you towards something better. And when someone begins recognizing that difference between noise and truth, their life slowly starts changing. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. Because every moment of clarity creates a new opportunity to choose a different direction. And the more you notice those opportunities, the more you begin to understand something important. God was not trying to interrupt your life to disturb you. He was trying to reach your attention so that your life could move toward the purpose it was always meant to find. Once you begin recognizing that difference between noise and truth, something inside you starts to slow down. Not your life completely, but the way you move through it. You begin to pause before certain decisions. You think a little longer about the direction you're choosing. You become more aware of the influence different environments have on your heart. And that awareness changes the way you see things. Moments that once passed quickly now feel more meaningful. A quiet walk, a few minutes of reflection, a simple prayer or thought that you hadn't considered seriously before. These moments begin to feel important because they give space for something deeper to grow. For a long time, many people live as if life is only about movement, more plans, more achievements, more distractions to keep the mind occupied. But when God begins getting someone's attention, He often introduces stillness, not to take away progress, but to redefine it. Progress stops being about how fast you move. It becomes about how clearly you understand the direction you're moving toward. You may even notice that certain things no longer feel urgent the way they once did. Situations that used to stress you now feel easier to step back from. You begin asking a different kind of question. Instead of asking, "How quickly can I get there?" you start asking, "Is this actually where I'm supposed to be going?" That shift in thinking is powerful. Because once someone begins asking that question honestly, their life begins moving with greater intention. Not every step becomes easier, but every step becomes more meaningful. And when life begins moving with meaning instead of noise, something remarkable happens. Peace begins to grow. Not the kind of peace that comes from avoiding problems, but the kind that comes from knowing you are finally paying attention to what truly matters. As this peace begins to grow, you may notice another quiet change inside you. Your priorities start shifting. Things that once seemed extremely important may slowly lose their grip on your attention. The constant need to prove something, the pressure to keep up with everyone else, the habit of filling every moment with activity, all of that begins to feel less necessary. Not because those things disappear from the world, but because your heart begins looking for something deeper than approval or distraction. You start realizing that a meaningful life cannot be built only on what the world celebrates. It must also be built on what strengthens your soul. This realization can feel surprising at first, because many people spend years chasing things that promise fulfillment, recognition, security, status. Yet even after achieving some of those things, the feeling of restlessness often remains. That is because restlessness is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes it is a signal that something inside you is ready to grow beyond the life you have been living. Growth often begins quietly, with questions. Questions like, what truly matters to me? What kind of person do I want to become? Am I building a life that reflects the values I believe in? When those questions begin appearing, they are not interruptions. They are invitations. Invitations to look deeper than routine. Invitations to examine the path you have been walking. And most importantly, invitations to consider that your life may be capable of far more meaning than you once imagined. God often uses these moments of reflection to reshape someone's direction. Not by forcing change, but by awakening a desire for something more honest, more purposeful, and more aligned with the person you were created to become. As this desire for something deeper grows, you may begin noticing that your perspective on life starts changing. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin to look different. Instead of reacting immediately to every challenge, you begin observing them with more patience. You start realizing that not every obstacle is meant to stop you. Some obstacles are meant to slow you down long enough to see something clearly. This shift in perspective is subtle but powerful. Because when someone learns to pause instead of panic, they begin responding to life with wisdom instead of impulse. You may also start recognizing patterns that you never noticed before. Moments when you ignored your inner sense of direction. Times when you followed pressure instead of purpose. Situations where fear convinced you to stay in places that were no longer healthy for your growth. Seeing those patterns is not meant to create regret. It is meant to create clarity. Clarity allows you to understand that every experience, even the difficult ones, has been shaping the person you are becoming. Nothing was entirely wasted. The challenges taught resilience. The disappointments revealed what truly matters. The seasons of confusion pushed you to search for deeper answers. And now, as you look back with this new awareness, you begin realizing something important. God was not absent during those confusing moments. Even when you felt uncertain, something was still guiding your steps. Quietly, patiently, waiting for the moment when your heart would become open enough to recognize the direction that had been forming all along. As this awareness deepens, you may begin realizing that the restlessness you once tried to escape was never meant to harm you. It was meant to wake you up. For a long time, it may have felt uncomfortable, like something inside you was unsettled, like there was a quiet tension you couldn't fully explain. Many people try to silence that feeling by staying busy. More distractions, more entertainment, more activity to keep the mind occupied. But the strange thing about restlessness is that it doesn't disappear simply because you ignore it. It returns, sometimes in quiet moments, sometimes when you finally slow down at the end of a long day, sometimes when you notice that even after accomplishing things you once hoped for, something still feels unfinished. That unfinished feeling is often misunderstood. People assume it means they need more success, more recognition, or more achievements. But often, it means something much simpler. It means your life is ready to move toward deeper alignment. Alignment with what truly matters. Alignment with the purpose that brings meaning beyond temporary accomplishments. God often uses restlessness as the beginning of that alignment, not to create anxiety, but to gently signal that your heart is capable of more than routine existence. When someone begins listening to that signal instead of running from it, the entire direction of their life can begin to change. Not in one dramatic moment, but through a series of small, honest decisions that slowly bring their life closer to the person they were created to become. As these small, honest decisions begin to shape your life, something new starts to develop inside you. A sense of direction. Not the kind of direction that answers every question about the future, but the kind that quietly reassures you that you are no longer moving without purpose. You may still have moments of uncertainty. You may still wonder what the next chapter of your life will look like. But there is a difference now. Instead of feeling lost, you begin feeling guided. That guidance often appears in subtle ways, a growing desire to spend time in reflection instead of constant distraction, a stronger awareness of the kind of people and environments that help you grow, a quiet conviction when something in your life no longer feels aligned with the person you are becoming. These signals may seem small at first, but when you begin respecting them, they gradually shape your path. You begin making decisions not just based on convenience, but based on what strengthens your heart and character. You become more careful about what influences your thinking. You become more intentional about how you spend your time. And over time, those choices begin creating a life that feels more stable, more meaningful, and more connected to what truly matters. This transformation rarely happens all at once. It unfolds step by step. But each step brings you closer to a life that reflects clarity instead of confusion. A life that reflects purpose instead of pressure. And most importantly, a life that reflects the quiet guidance that began the moment you started paying attention to the restlessness you once tried to ignore. As this guidance continues shaping your decisions, something else begins to change inside you. Your relationship with uncertainty. Before, uncertainty may have felt like a threat. Not knowing what would happen next might have created anxiety, hesitation, or even fear. You may have felt pressure to control every detail of your life just to feel secure. But when someone begins walking with deeper awareness, uncertainty starts to feel different. It no longer appears as an enemy. Instead, it becomes a space where trust can grow. You begin realizing that you don't need to understand every step ahead in order to move forward with confidence. What matters more is the direction of your heart. When your heart is aligned with truth, each step becomes clear as you take it. That kind of trust does not remove challenges. Life will still bring moments of difficulty. Unexpected changes will still appear. But your response to those moments begins to change. Instead of reacting with panic, you pause. Instead of assuming the worst, you listen. Instead of rushing to control everything, you allow yourself to move forward with patience. That patience is not weakness, it is strength, because it allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. And over time, this new way of approaching life begins creating something powerful. A steady confidence. Not confidence based on having all the answers, but confidence based on knowing that you are learning how to walk through life with greater wisdom, greater awareness, and greater trust than you ever had before. As this confidence begins to grow, another quiet realization often follows. You begin understanding that your life was never meant to be guided only by external pressure. For many years, it is easy to believe that success, approval, and constant activity are the signs that life is moving in the right direction. But when deeper awareness takes root, those measurements start to lose their power. You begin asking different questions. Not how much have I achieved, but who am I becoming? Not how busy am I, but am I living with purpose? These questions can feel uncomfortable at first because they require honesty. They require looking beyond habits and routines and asking whether your current direction truly reflects the values you want your life to stand for. But this kind of reflection is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to strengthen you. Because when someone begins shaping their life around truth instead of pressure, their choices begin carrying greater meaning. You begin noticing that even ordinary days hold significance. A conversation becomes more thoughtful. A moment of silence becomes more valuable. A simple act of kindness becomes more intentional. This is how purpose begins to reveal itself. Not through one dramatic moment, but through the steady alignment of daily choices with the kind of life you believe in. And when those choices begin aligning with truth, something powerful begins forming. A life that feels more honest, more grounded, and more connected to the quiet guidance that first began getting your attention when restlessness appeared within your heart. As this alignment becomes stronger, you may begin noticing that your inner life feels different. Before, your thoughts may have felt scattered. One moment pulled you in one direction. Another moment pulled you somewhere else. Responsibilities, expectations, and distractions all competing for your attention. But when your life begins aligning with deeper truth, that inner tension slowly begins to calm. You start feeling more centered, not because everything around you has suddenly become easy, but because your heart is no longer divided between too many directions. You begin recognizing what truly deserves your energy. You become more selective with what you allow to influence your thinking. Some things you once worried about begin to feel less important. Some things you once overlooked begin to feel far more meaningful. This is the quiet process of inner clarity. Clarity does not arrive like a sudden announcement. It grows slowly through awareness and reflection. Through moments when you pause and listen instead of rushing forward. Through decisions where you choose honesty instead of convenience. Each of those moments strengthens your sense of direction. And over time, that direction becomes something you can trust. Not because life becomes predictable, but because you begin understanding that your choices are no longer being driven only by pressure or fear. They are being guided by something deeper. A growing awareness that your life is not meant to drift without intention. It is meant to move forward with purpose, shaped by the quiet wisdom that has been forming inside you all along. As this wisdom continues forming inside you, something else begins to happen that many people don't expect. You begin feeling less rushed. For a long time, life may have felt like a race. Always trying to keep up, always trying to reach the next milestone, always feeling like you were slightly behind where you were supposed to be. That constant urgency can make it difficult to appreciate the present moment. But when your life starts aligning with deeper purpose, that pressure begins to loosen. You start realizing that meaningful growth rarely happens through constant rushing. It happens through consistency, through small choices made with intention, through moments where you slow down long enough to understand what truly deserves your attention. This shift changes how you view progress. Progress stops being about how quickly you arrive somewhere. It becomes about how faithfully you move in the right direction. You begin recognizing that patience is not wasted time. It is preparation. Preparation for opportunities you may not yet see. Preparation for responsibilities you may one day carry. Preparation for the person you are gradually becoming. And as this patience takes root, your heart begins to experience something deeper than urgency. You begin experiencing steadiness, a calm confidence that you are no longer rushing through life without understanding it. Instead, you are learning to walk through life with awareness, with intention, and with a growing trust that the direction unfolding before you has meaning far greater than you once realized. As this steadiness continues to grow, you begin noticing that the way you relate to your past also starts to change. There may have been moments you once looked back on with regret, decisions you wished you had handled differently, opportunities you felt you missed, times when confusion or pressure led you in directions that no longer reflect the person you are becoming today. For a long time, those memories might have felt heavy, but when your life begins moving with greater awareness, something unexpected happens. Your past starts looking different, not because the events themselves change, but because the meaning you see in them begins to shift. You start recognizing that even difficult seasons taught you something important. Challenges developed resilience. Mistakes revealed where growth was needed. Moments of uncertainty pushed you to search for deeper understanding. Instead of viewing those experiences only as setbacks, you begin seeing them as part of a larger process. A process that was quietly shaping your perspective, strengthening your character, preparing your heart to recognize truth more clearly. This realization removes a weight that many people carry for years. The weight of believing their past disqualified them from moving forward with purpose. But the truth is often the opposite. The lessons from your past are part of what make your future meaningful, because they give you wisdom. And wisdom allows you to walk forward not just with ambition, but with understanding. An understanding that every chapter of your life, even the difficult ones, has contributed to the person you are becoming today. As this understanding deepens, another quiet transformation begins to take place. Your relationship with the future starts changing. For a long time, the future may have felt uncertain or even intimidating. Questions about where life was going, whether you were making the right decisions, whether things would eventually work out the way you hoped. Those thoughts can easily create pressure. But when someone begins living with greater awareness and alignment, the future no longer feels like something that must be controlled at every moment. Instead, it becomes something that can be approached with patience. You begin realizing that the most important part of your future is not predicting every outcome. It is continuing to move with integrity in the present. Each honest decision you make today becomes a small step toward a stronger tomorrow. Each moment of reflection helps you stay connected to the values shaping your direction. Each act of patience allows wisdom to guide your response instead of impulse. When life is approached this way, the future becomes less about fear and more about possibility. Possibility for growth, possibility for meaningful relationships, possibility for a life that reflects both purpose and compassion. You may still wonder what the road ahead will look like. That curiosity is natural, but instead of feeling anxious about every unknown detail, you begin trusting that clarity often appears as you move forward, one thoughtful step at a time. And that trust creates a kind of freedom, the freedom to live fully in the present moment while knowing that the direction you are walking continues to shape a future with deeper meaning. As this freedom begins to settle into your life, you may notice another quiet shift in the way you relate to other people. Before, many interactions might have felt shaped by expectations, trying to meet standards, trying to gain approval, trying to avoid disappointing others. Those pressures can easily make relationships feel complicated. But when your life becomes more aligned with purpose and clarity, something different begins to emerge. You start valuing authenticity more than approval. Instead of constantly trying to fit into expectations, you begin showing up as the person you are becoming. More honest, more thoughtful, more willing to listen and understand instead of simply reacting. This change affects the way you speak, the way you respond to challenges, and the way you treat people around you. Patience grows, compassion becomes more natural. You begin recognizing that everyone you encounter is carrying their own struggles, questions, and hopes, and that awareness softens the way you move through the world. Relationships stop being competitions for recognition. They begin becoming opportunities for connection, moments where kindness matters more than being right, moments where understanding matters more than winning an argument. These changes may seem small on the surface, but over time they create a life that feels more peaceful and meaningful. Because when someone learns to walk with both purpose and compassion, their presence begins influencing the world around them in quiet but powerful ways. And often, they don't even realize how much their steady example is helping others find their own direction as your presence begins influencing the world around you in quiet ways. Another realization often begins to form. You start seeing that purpose is not always about grand achievements. Many people spend years believing that a meaningful life must look dramatic. A big moment, a visible accomplishment, something that everyone else recognizes as important. But when your life becomes grounded in awareness and intention, your understanding of purpose begins to mature. You realize that some of the most meaningful moments in life are the ones that never receive public attention. A conversation that encourages someone who feels discouraged. A small act of kindness that lifts someone's spirit. A moment when you choose patience instead of anger. These moments rarely appear in headlines, but they shape the lives of the people involved, and over time, they shape the kind of person you become. This realization frees you from a pressure that many people carry, the pressure to constantly prove that their life matters. Because when you understand purpose more deeply, you recognize that meaning is not created by applause, it is created by faithfulness. Faithfulness in the way you treat people. Faithfulness in the way you respond to challenges. Faithfulness in the way you continue choosing truth, even when it would be easier to ignore it. And as you begin living this way, something remarkable happens. Your life stops feeling like a race for recognition. Instead, it begins feeling like a journey where every step has the potential to carry quiet significance, even when no one else notices. As this understanding continues to settle into your life, you may begin noticing something else changing inside you. Your need for constant reassurance begins to fade. For a long time, you may have looked for signs that you were on the right path. Approval from others, validation through achievements, external confirmation that your choices were correct. Those forms of reassurance can feel comforting, but they are often temporary. Because the moment circumstances change, that reassurance can disappear just as quickly. But when your life begins aligning with deeper truth, something stronger begins to develop. An inner confidence, not a loud confidence that tries to impress others, but a quiet confidence that grows from clarity. You begin trusting the direction your life is moving because you understand the values guiding your choices. You begin recognizing that meaningful growth does not always look impressive from the outside. Sometimes it looks like patience when everyone else is rushing. Sometimes it looks like humility when pride would be easier. Sometimes it looks like persistence during seasons when results are not immediately visible. These kinds of choices build something lasting. They strengthen your character. They deepen your wisdom. And most importantly, they remind you that your life is not being measured by how loudly it appears to succeed. It is being shaped by how faithfully you continue moving in the direction of truth. When someone understands this, their journey becomes steadier because they are no longer chasing reassurance from the world around them. They are learning to trust the quiet clarity that has been forming within them all along. As this quiet confidence continues to grow, you may begin noticing another meaningful change. Your relationship with challenges starts to transform. In the past, difficulties may have felt like obstacles that needed to be avoided or escaped as quickly as possible. Moments of struggle might have seemed like signs that something was going wrong, but when your life begins moving with deeper awareness, you start seeing challenges from a different perspective. Instead of viewing them only as problems, you begin recognizing them as moments that reveal who you are becoming. Challenges test patience. They reveal whether your decisions are rooted in truth or in temporary emotion. They expose habits that need to change and strengths that were hidden beneath comfort. This does not mean challenges suddenly become easy. Life will still bring seasons that feel uncertain or demanding, but your response to those seasons begins to change. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What can this moment teach me?" That question opens the door to growth, because every difficulty holds the potential to strengthen your understanding, your compassion, and your resilience. Over time, you begin realizing that some of the most meaningful lessons in life were learned during moments that once felt uncomfortable, moments that slowed you down, moments that required patience, moments that pushed you to think more deeply about the direction of your life. And through those experiences, something powerful takes shape. A life that is not defined by avoiding challenges, but by learning how to walk through them with wisdom, steadiness, and a growing trust that every step forward continues shaping a stronger and more meaningful journey. As you continue learning to walk through challenges with wisdom, something deeper begins forming within your heart. A sense of gratitude, not only for the easy moments in life, but also for the lessons hidden within difficult seasons. This kind of gratitude does not appear instantly. It grows slowly. At first, you may only notice it in small ways. Moments when you pause and recognize how far you have come. Moments when you realize that something which once felt overwhelming no longer holds the same power over you. Moments when you see that your patience has grown stronger than it used to be. These realizations are quiet, but they are meaningful, because gratitude shifts the way you see your journey. Instead of focusing only on what has not happened yet, you begin appreciating the growth that has already taken place. You recognize the resilience that formed during past challenges. You notice the wisdom that emerged from moments of reflection. You become aware of the strength that slowly developed as you continued moving forward. And with that awareness, something inside you begins to feel lighter. The pressure to rush toward the future softens. You start recognizing that every stage of life carries its own purpose. Some seasons are meant for action. Some seasons are meant for learning. And some seasons are meant for quiet preparation. When you understand this, you stop measuring your life only by how fast things are changing. Instead, you begin valuing how deeply you are growing. And that depth becomes the foundation for everything that will unfold in the chapters ahead. As this sense of gratitude deepens, you may begin recognizing another quiet truth about your journey. You are not the same person you were before this awareness began. The way you think has changed. The way you respond to challenges has matured. The way you understand purpose and direction has become clearer. Growth often happens so gradually that it is easy to overlook. Day by day, small choices shape your character. Moments of patience replace moments of frustration. Moments of reflection replace moments of impulse. Moments of honesty replace moments of avoidance. Each of these small changes contributes to a transformation that becomes visible only when you pause long enough to look back. And when you do look back, you may realize something important. The restlessness that once felt confusing has slowly turned into clarity. The uncertainty that once felt heavy has begun turning into trust. The questions that once created anxiety have started guiding you toward deeper understanding. This is how meaningful change often unfolds, not through sudden perfection, but through consistent growth. Through a willingness to listen when something inside your heart asks for attention. Through the courage to make small adjustments that bring your life closer to truth. And as these adjustments continue shaping your path, you begin realizing that your journey is not random. Every lesson, every reflection, and every moment of awareness has been preparing you for the life that is now gradually unfolding before you. As your journey continues unfolding, you may begin recognizing another powerful truth. Growth is not only about the direction you are moving, it is also about the patience you develop along the way. For a long time, many people believe that progress must always be fast. That meaningful change should happen quickly, that clarity should arrive immediately once a decision has been made. But real transformation rarely follows that timeline. It grows through consistency, through returning to the same values again and again, even when life becomes busy or distracting. There will be days when you feel confident in your direction, and there may also be days when uncertainty quietly returns. Those moments are natural. Growth does not remove every question. Instead, it teaches you how to walk forward even while questions still exist. When you understand this, patience becomes easier to embrace. You stop expecting instant results from every effort. You stop measuring your life by how quickly everything improves. Instead, you begin recognizing that meaningful change is built through steady commitment. One thoughtful decision at a time, one moment of reflection at a time, one act of kindness, honesty, or courage at a time. These moments may appear small, but they are the building blocks of a life that carries depth and purpose. And as those moments continue shaping your character, something remarkable begins to appear. A quiet stability. The kind of stability that allows you to keep moving forward even when the path ahead still holds unanswered questions. As this quiet stability becomes part of your life, you may begin noticing another shift in the way you view the world around you. You start recognizing that many people are walking through their own questions and uncertainties. Just as you once experienced moments of confusion, restlessness, or searching, others are also navigating their own journeys. This awareness changes the way you interact with them. Instead of judging quickly, you begin observing with empathy. Instead of assuming you understand their situation completely, you become more willing to listen. Because you now understand something important. Every person is carrying experiences that have shaped who they are. Every person has faced challenges that others may never fully see. When you recognize this, compassion begins to guide your actions. You start responding to people with more patience. You become more thoughtful about the words you choose. you understand that encouragement can have a powerful impact on someone who is quietly struggling. This kind of compassion does not weaken your direction. In fact, it strengthens it, because a life shaped by wisdom and awareness naturally creates space for kindness. And kindness has the ability to influence the world in ways that are often invisible at first. A simple moment of understanding can change someone's day. A sincere conversation can restore hope in someone who feels discouraged. A steady example of integrity can inspire others to reflect on their own path. As you continue living with this awareness, you may begin realizing that your journey is no longer only about your own growth. It also becomes a quiet source of encouragement for the people whose lives intersect with yours. As your journey begins influencing others in quiet ways, you may start recognizing something deeper about the kind of life you are building. It is no longer centered only on personal achievement. It is becoming centered on meaning. Meaning in the way you think. Meaning in the way you speak. Meaning in the way you treat the people around you. For a long time, the world may have taught you that success is measured by what can be seen. Titles, recognition, achievements that can be easily displayed. But as your awareness grows, your definition of success begins to shift. Success starts looking less like applause and more like alignment. Alignment between your values and your actions. Alignment between the person you believe you should be and the way you live each day. This kind of alignment brings a quiet sense of fulfillment that external approval rarely provides. Because it is not dependent on circumstances. It grows from the integrity of your choices. You begin recognizing that every day offers opportunities to strengthen that alignment through honesty, through patience, through courage when difficult decisions appear. These moments may not attract attention, but they shape the foundation of a meaningful life. And as that foundation becomes stronger, something inside you begins to feel more grounded. You no longer feel like you are searching endlessly for direction. Instead, you feel like you are walking steadily along a path that continues revealing its purpose with every thoughtful step you take. As you continue walking along this path, something else begins to reveal itself. Your understanding of purpose becomes clearer. Purpose is not always a single dramatic calling. It is often a series of consistent choices that reflect the values shaping your life. Each day presents opportunities to live according to those values. Opportunities to act with integrity when honesty matters. Opportunities to remain patient when frustration appears. Opportunities to respond with compassion when someone else is struggling. These moments may not look extraordinary from the outside, but they carry lasting significance. Because purpose is not defined only by what you accomplish, it is defined by who you become while accomplishing it. As this understanding deepens, your life begins to feel more intentional. You start noticing how your choices affect the direction of your journey. You become more aware of the influence your actions have on the people around you. And you recognize that even small decisions can carry meaning when they reflect the principles guiding your life. This realization creates a different kind of motivation. Instead of striving only for results, you begin striving for alignment. Alignment between your beliefs and your actions. Alignment between your values and your priorities. And as you continue choosing alignment, the path before you becomes clearer. Not because every detail is revealed, but because you now understand the purpose is built step by step through the decisions you make every day. As your life continues moving with this sense of alignment, you may begin noticing another quiet strength forming inside you. Resilience. Life will always bring moments that test your patience and understanding. Unexpected situations will appear. Plans may change. Certain seasons may feel more difficult than others, but when your life is guided by deeper purpose, those moments no longer shake your direction the way they once did. Instead of losing focus during challenges, you begin reminding yourself of the values shaping your path. You remember why you chose to move forward with honesty, patience, and compassion. You recognize that setbacks do not erase the progress you have made. They simply become part of the journey that continues shaping your character. This perspective creates resilience, the ability to continue moving forward even when circumstances are uncertain, the ability to remain steady when emotions feel unsettled, the ability to learn from difficulty instead of being defined by it. Over time, this resilience strengthens your confidence, not the kind of confidence that ignores challenges, but the kind that understands challenges are part of growth. And with that understanding, your journey becomes more balanced. You celebrate moments of success with gratitude. You approach moments of difficulty with patience, and you continue walking forward knowing that every experience, whether easy or challenging, is contributing to the person you are becoming. As resilience strengthens your journey, another realization slowly begins to settle into your heart. You no longer feel the same need to compare your life to everyone else's. For a long time, comparison may have shaped how you viewed your progress. Looking at where others were, measuring your achievements against someone else's timeline, wondering if you were moving too slowly or missing opportunities. But when purpose becomes clear, comparison begins losing its power. You start recognizing that every life follows a different path, different experience, different lessons, different timing for growth and understanding. Your journey was never meant to be identical to someone else's. It is uniquely shaped by the choices, challenges, and insights that belong to your story. This understanding brings a sense of freedom from the pressure to constantly prove that your life is moving fast enough. Freedom from the fear that you might be falling behind. Instead of measuring your life by someone else's progress, you begin measuring it by your own growth, by the way your thinking has matured, by the patience you now show in situations that once frustrated you, by the clarity that has replaced the confusion you once carried. These changes may not always be visible to the outside world, but they represent something far more meaningful. They represent the quiet transformation of your character. And when someone focuses on that kind of growth, their journey becomes far more fulfilling than any comparison could ever provide. As this sense of freedom grows, another quiet understanding begins to take shape. You realize that peace is not something that arrives only when life becomes perfect. Peace grows when your life begins to align with truth. For a long time, it is easy to believe that peace will come after certain problems are solved, after the right opportunity appears, after circumstances finally become easier. But many people eventually discover that external conditions alone rarely create lasting peace. True peace develops from the way you respond to life itself, from the patience you practice during uncertainty, from the integrity you maintain when decisions become difficult, from the gratitude you cultivate even when things are not exactly as you expected. These choices shape the atmosphere of your inner life, and as your inner life becomes more grounded, something remarkable begins to happen. Situations that once created stress begin to feel more manageable. Moments that once triggered frustration become opportunities for reflection. You begin realizing that peace does not mean avoiding every challenge. It means learning how to remain steady while challenges pass through your life. And this steadiness becomes one of the most valuable strengths you can develop, because it allows you to move through life without constantly feeling overwhelmed by every change or difficulty. Instead, you continue walking forward with clarity, patience, and a growing trust that your journey is unfolding exactly as it needs to. As this steadiness becomes part of your daily life, you may begin noticing something else that many people overlook. Your pace begins to change, not because you are slowing down in a negative way, but because you are moving with greater intention. For a long time, life may have felt like constant motion, always planning the next step, always thinking about what comes after the current moment. But when purpose becomes clearer, the urgency to rush through everything begins to fade. You begin giving your full attention to the moment you are living in. You listen more carefully during conversations. You notice the small details of life that once passed unnoticed. You become more present with the people and opportunities around you. This presence creates a deeper sense of connection. Connection with your own thoughts, connection with the people you care about, connection with the direction your life is gradually revealing. Instead of feeling like you must control every outcome, you begin trusting the process of growth itself. You recognize that each moment carries its own lesson. Each experience offers its own opportunity to respond with wisdom. And when you approach life this way, something powerful begins to happen. Your journey stops feeling like a race toward an unknown destination. It begins feeling like a meaningful path that unfolds step by step as you continue walking forward with awareness, patience, and a steady commitment to the values guiding your life. As you continue walking this path with awareness, something deeper begins forming inside you. A sense of clarity about what truly matters. For many people, life can feel overwhelming because too many things compete for attention. Responsibilities, expectations, distractions that promise quick satisfaction but rarely offer lasting meaning. When everything feels equally urgent, it becomes difficult to know where your energy should truly go. But as your understanding grows, priorities begin to rearrange themselves. You begin recognizing which parts of life deserve your focus and which ones simply create noise. Time becomes more valuable, not because you have less of it, but because you understand how important it is to use it wisely. You become more careful about the influences you allow into your daily life, the conversations you participate in, the habits you continue or leave behind, the environments that either strengthen or weaken your sense of purpose. These decisions gradually shape a life that feels more intentional. You no longer feel pulled in too many directions at once. Instead, you begin moving forward with a clearer sense of what deserves your commitment. And that clarity creates a powerful kind of peace. Because when someone understands what truly matters, they stop wasting energy chasing things that cannot fulfill them. They begin building a life centered on values that remain meaningful long after temporary distractions fade away. As this clarity strengthens your life, you may begin recognizing something else that quietly changes your perspective. You start appreciating the power of small decisions. For a long time, it is easy to believe that only big moments shape the direction of life. Major choices, life-changing opportunities, events that seem large enough to define an entire chapter. But as your awareness grows, you begin noticing that life is often shaped far more by the small choices repeated every day. The way you respond when something irritates you, the decision to pause and think instead of reacting quickly, the effort to show kindness even when you are tired or distracted, the willingness to stay honest when it would be easier to ignore the truth. Each of these small decisions becomes a building block. One choice alone may seem insignificant, but when those choices are repeated consistently, they begin forming habits, and habits shape character. Character, in turn, shapes the direction of your life. This realization changes how you approach everyday moments. You no longer wait only for dramatic opportunities to grow. You recognize that growth is happening constantly through ordinary situations, through conversations, through responsibilities, through moments when you choose patience instead of frustration. These quiet decisions may never appear extraordinary to the outside world, but they slowly create a life that reflects strength, wisdom, and integrity. And over time, those qualities become the foundation for everything meaningful that continues unfolding ahead. As these small decisions continue shaping your character, another understanding begins to take root within you. You begin recognizing that true growth is rarely visible in dramatic moments. Most of the time, it happens quietly, day by day, choice by choice. There may be times when you wonder if the effort you are putting into living with integrity truly matters. Times when progress feels slow. Times when the results of your patience and reflection are not immediately obvious, but meaningful growth often works beneath the surface. Just like the roots of a tree growing deeper into the soil. From the outside, little may appear to change. Yet beneath the surface, strength is forming. The same is true for your life. Every moment when you choose honesty instead of convenience, every moment when you remain calm instead of reacting with frustration, every moment when you act with compassion instead of indifference, those moments deepen the foundation of your character. And over time, that foundation supports a life that can withstand challenges without losing direction. You may not always see immediate rewards for those choices, but the stability they create will gradually become clear. Because when a life is built on truth and intention, it develops a strength that circumstances alone cannot shake. And that strength becomes one of the most valuable parts of the journey you are continuing to walk. As this inner strength continues developing, you may begin noticing another quiet change in the way you see your journey. You stop expecting life to be perfect in order to feel content. For a long time, many people believe that happiness depends on everything finally going the way they hoped. When problems disappear, when goals are fully achieved, when circumstances become easy and predictable. But life rarely unfolds that way. Challenges appear, plans change. Unexpected moments interrupt the direction you thought you were following. Yet when your life becomes grounded in purpose and awareness, you begin understanding something deeper. Contentment does not come from controlling every outcome. It comes from knowing that your direction is guided by values that remain meaningful, even when circumstances shift. You start realizing that fulfillment is not found only in reaching the destination. It is found in the way you walk the path itself, in the patience you practice during uncertainty, in the kindness you offer during difficult moments, in the honesty you maintain even when no one else is watching. These choices bring a quiet satisfaction that does not depend on perfection, because they remind you that your life is being shaped by something more important than temporary success. It is being shaped by character. And when character becomes the foundation of your journey, you discover that contentment can exist even in the middle of unfinished chapters. As you continue walking with this sense of contentment, another important realization slowly becomes clear. Your life is no longer defined only by what happens to you. It is increasingly defined by how you choose to respond. This understanding gives you a kind of strength that many people spend years searching for, because circumstances will always change. Unexpected situations will always appear, but the power to choose your response remains with you. When someone recognizes this, life begins to feel less overwhelming. Instead of feeling controlled by every situation, you begin responding with intention. When challenges arise, you pause before reacting. When frustration appears, you remember the patience you have been learning to practice. When disappointment arrives, you remind yourself that one moment does not determine the direction of your entire journey. These responses may seem simple, yet they carry great influence over the kind of life you experience. Because the way you respond to life shapes your inner world, and your inner world shapes the path you continue walking. Over time, this awareness strengthens your confidence in ways that do not depend on circumstances. You begin trusting that no matter what situations appear, you have the ability to respond with wisdom, patience, and integrity. And that trust allows you to keep moving forward with steadiness, knowing that your journey is not being defined by random events. It is being shaped by the thoughtful choices you continue making along the way. As this trust in your responses grows, something else begins to change within you. Your fear of the unknown slowly begins to lose its grip. In the past, uncertainty may have created tension. You may have felt the need to plan every detail, to predict every possible outcome, just to feel safe moving forward. But as your understanding deepens, you begin realizing that not every step in life can be fully mapped out in advance. Some parts of the journey reveal themselves only after you begin walking. This realization brings a different kind of confidence. Not the confidence that comes from knowing everything, but the confidence that comes from trusting your ability to handle what appears. You understand that the wisdom you are building today will guide you tomorrow. You recognize that the patience you practice now will help you face future challenges with greater calm. And you see that the awareness shaping your life is preparing you for moments you cannot yet see. Instead of fearing uncertainty, you begin approaching it with curiosity. You become open to the lessons that new experiences may bring. You begin understanding that life's most meaningful chapters often begin in moments when the path ahead is not completely clear. And when someone learns to walk forward with this kind of openness, their journey becomes less about avoiding uncertainty and more about discovering the opportunities hidden within it. As this openness becomes part of the way you move through life, you may begin noticing another quiet transformation. You become more present. For a long time, many people live with their attention divided between the past and the future, thinking about what already happened, worrying about what might happen next. But when your awareness grows, you begin realizing that the present moment carries more value than you once recognized. Because the present is where every meaningful decision is made. It is where patience is practiced. It is where kindness is expressed. It is where courage appears when challenges arise. The past can offer lessons. The future can inspire hope. But the present is where life actually unfolds. When you begin giving your attention to the present moment, everyday experiences start feeling richer. Conversations feel more genuine. Moments of quiet reflection become more meaningful. Even simple routines carry a sense of purpose when you approach them with awareness. This presence does not mean ignoring the future. It means trusting that the future will be shaped by the choices you make today. Each thoughtful decision strengthens your direction. Each moment of honesty deepens your character. Each act of patience reinforces the path you are walking. And as these moments accumulate, you begin realizing that a meaningful life is not built through occasional dramatic actions. It is built through steady presence in the ordinary moments that shape who you are becoming. As you continue living with this sense of presence, something else begins to develop quietly within you. A deeper sense of trust in the journey itself. There was a time when you may have questioned every step, wondering whether you were moving too slowly, wondering whether you had missed opportunities or taken the wrong path. Those questions can create pressure, making life feel like a constant evaluation of every decision. But as your understanding grows, you begin realizing that growth rarely follows a straight and predictable line. There are seasons of progress. There are seasons of reflection. There are moments when life moves quickly, and moments when it slows down so you can learn something important. Instead of resisting those changes, you begin allowing the journey to unfold. You understand that even the slower seasons carry value. They offer space to think, space to observe, space to strengthen the foundations that will support the chapters still ahead. This trust removes a great deal of unnecessary pressure. You stop trying to force life into a rigid timeline. You stop worrying about whether every moment looks impressive to others. Instead, you continue focusing on the direction of your character, on the integrity of your choices, on the patience that allows wisdom to grow. And when someone begins living with that kind of trust, their life develops a quiet confidence. A confidence that does not come from knowing every outcome, but from understanding that each step taken with honesty and awareness is leading them exactly where they need to go. As this quiet confidence continues to grow within you, another realization begins to take shape. You start seeing that your journey has never truly been about reaching a final destination. It has always been about becoming someone who responds with wisdom instead of impulse, becoming someone who chooses patience when life feels rushed, becoming someone who understands that character is built through everyday decisions. Many people spend years chasing a moment when they believe everything will finally feel complete. But fulfillment rarely appears as a single moment. It grows gradually as your life becomes aligned with the values that matter most. You begin recognizing that the purpose of your journey is not simply to arrive somewhere. It is to grow into the kind of person who can carry meaning, compassion, and understanding into every place you go. When you view life this way, each experience takes on new significance. Success becomes an opportunity to remain humble. Challenges become opportunities to strengthen resilience. Ordinary moments become opportunities to practice gratitude. Nothing feels wasted anymore, because every chapter of your life contributes to the person you are becoming. And when someone begins living with that awareness, they stop feeling like life is passing them by. Instead, they begin recognizing that every step they take with intention is shaping a story that carries quiet purpose and lasting meaning. As this awareness continues guiding your journey, something important begins to settle inside your heart. You begin understanding that meaning is not something you must chase endlessly. It is something you build through the way you live each day. For many people, the search for meaning feels complicated. They imagine it must appear through a single dramatic calling or a moment that suddenly explains everything. But often, meaning grows through simple consistency, through the daily decision to act with integrity, through the willingness to stay patient when circumstances test your resolve, through the choice to remain compassionate even when others are struggling. These choices gradually shape a life that feels purposeful, Not because every moment is extraordinary, but because every moment is approached with awareness. You begin realizing that the value of your life is not determined only by what you accomplish. It is also determined by how you influence the world around you. The encouragement you offer, the honesty you maintain, the kindness you share during moments when someone else needs it most. These quiet actions ripple outward in ways that are often impossible to measure, but their impact is real. And as your life continues unfolding with this understanding, you begin recognizing that the path you are walking is not random. It is being shaped by every thoughtful decision you make. Each step bringing you closer to a life defined not by pressure or comparison, but by clarity, purpose, and the steady presence of meaning that continues growing within you. As this sense of meaning becomes more visible in your life, you may begin noticing something else that quietly strengthens your journey: your ability to remain calm during uncertainty. There was a time when unexpected situations might have caused immediate stress. Moments when plans changed could have made everything feel unstable. But as your understanding deepens, you begin recognizing that uncertainty is not always something to fear. Sometimes it is simply a reminder that life is still unfolding, that new chapters are still forming, that possibilities you cannot yet see are slowly taking shape. Instead of reacting with frustration when things do not go exactly as expected, you begin responding with patience. You allow situations to reveal their lessons before rushing to conclusions. You give yourself space to think before making decisions. This calm approach changes how you experience challenges. Difficult moments no longer feel like threats to your direction. They become opportunities to practice the wisdom and resilience you have been developing. Over time, this calmness becomes one of your greatest strengths. Because when life becomes unpredictable, the ability to remain steady allows you to navigate situations more clearly. It allows you to make decisions based on understanding rather than panic. And it reminds you that the direction of your life is not determined by sudden changes. It is shaped by the consistent values that continue guiding your steps forward. As this calm strength becomes part of the way you move through life, you may begin recognizing another quiet shift. You start trusting your inner sense of direction more than outside noise. For many people, life can feel confusing because there are so many voices offering opinions about what success should look like, what you should pursue, what you should value, what path you should follow. When those voices become too loud, it can be difficult to hear the quiet guidance forming within your own heart. But as your awareness grows, something changes. You begin listening more carefully to the deeper conviction shaping your choices. You become less influenced by pressure and more guided by principle. Instead of asking, "What will others expect from me?" you begin asking, "What aligns with the values I believe in?" That question becomes a powerful compass. It helps you recognize when something feels right. It also helps you step away from paths that no longer reflect who you are becoming. This does not mean ignoring the wisdom of others. Advice can still be valuable, but your decisions are no longer controlled by the need for approval. They are guided by a growing sense of clarity. And when someone begins living this way, their life develops a quiet confidence. A confidence that does not depend on fitting into every expectation, but instead grows from the understanding that the direction of your life should always remain aligned with the truth you have learned along your journey. As this clarity continues guiding your decisions, you may begin noticing another meaningful change in the way you experience everyday life. You start recognizing the value of stillness, In a world that constantly encourages movement and noise, stillness can feel unfamiliar at first. Many people fill every moment with activity, more tasks, more information, more distractions that keep the mind constantly occupied. But when you begin living with deeper awareness, stillness becomes something valuable rather than uncomfortable. Stillness creates space. Space to think clearly, space to observe what is happening inside your own heart, space to notice the lessons that busy routines might otherwise hide. During these quiet moments, you begin understanding yourself more honestly. You become aware of your motivations. You recognize the habits that strengthen your direction. You also see the habits that quietly pull you away from the life you are trying to build. This awareness is powerful because once you see something clearly, you gain the ability to change it. Stillness also helps you reconnect with gratitude. You begin appreciating simple moments that once felt ordinary. A peaceful morning, a thoughtful conversation, a quiet evening when your mind has space to reflect. These moments remind you that meaning is not always found in constant activity. Sometimes it is discovered in the quiet spaces where understanding has room to grow. As these quiet moments of understanding continue shaping your life, you may begin noticing something else that brings unexpected strength. Your perspective on time begins to change. In the past, time may have felt like something you were constantly racing against, trying to accomplish more, trying to move faster, trying to reach certain milestones before it felt too late. But when your life becomes grounded in purpose and awareness, that pressure slowly begins to fade. You start realizing that meaningful growth cannot be rushed. Wisdom takes time to develop. Character is formed through repeated choices over many days and years. Relationships deepen through patience and consistency. When you understand this, you stop treating time as an enemy. Instead, you begin respecting it as a partner in your journey. You allow yourself the space to grow naturally. You understand that not every answer must appear immediately. You trust that clarity often reveals itself gradually as you continue living with honesty and reflection. This shift brings a sense of calm that many people search for but rarely find. Because when you stop rushing through life, you begin seeing more clearly what truly matters. Moments become richer, experiences become more meaningful, and the direction of your life begins to feel less like a race and more like a path that unfolds steadily as you continue walking forward with patience and purpose. As this patience continues shaping the way you see your journey, another quiet truth begins to emerge. You start understanding that your life carries influence far beyond what you may notice. Every decision you make, every word you speak, and every action you take creates a ripple that touches the lives of others. Sometimes that influence is obvious, a conversation that encourages someone who was feeling discouraged, a moment of kindness that reminds another person they are not alone. But often, the influence of your life appears in quieter ways, through the example you set, through the calm you maintain during difficult moments, through the integrity you show when honesty matters most. People observe these things even when they do not say it aloud. They notice the steadiness of someone who lives according to their values. They notice the compassion of someone who chooses patience instead of anger. They notice the courage of someone who remains true to their principles, even when it would be easier to compromise. This influence does not require recognition to be meaningful. Its power lies in consistency. Because when someone lives with clarity, patience, and compassion, their presence quietly encourages others to reflect on their own choices. And over time, those quiet examples create a positive impact that spreads much farther than one person may ever fully see. This is one of the hidden strengths of a life lived with purpose. It becomes a source of light for others who may still be searching for their own direction. As you begin recognizing the influence your life carries, another realization quietly settles into your heart. You understand that purpose is not something reserved for extraordinary people. It is something that unfolds through ordinary lives lived with intention. Many people spend years believing that purpose must look dramatic, something visible to everyone, something that changes the world in obvious ways. But the truth is often far simpler and far more powerful. Purpose grows wherever someone chooses to live with honesty, patience, and compassion. It grows when someone refuses to let frustration define their actions. It grows when someone continues offering kindness even when life becomes difficult. It grows when someone chooses to remain faithful to their values, even when no one else is watching. These moments may never appear extraordinary from the outside, yet they carry a quiet power that shapes both your life and the lives of those around you. Over time, you begin recognizing that purpose is not a destination that you arrive at once. It is a way of living, a way of responding to life with awareness and intention. And when someone begins living with that understanding, their journey becomes deeply meaningful. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because every step forward reflects the character they are continuing to build. As this understanding becomes clearer, another gentle realization begins to form. You begin seeing that the journey you are walking is not meant to be rushed. For a long time, it may have felt like life was something you needed to figure out as quickly as possible. Trying to solve every question, trying to reach certainty about the future, trying to arrive at a place where everything finally made sense. But as your awareness deepens, you begin recognizing that some of the most meaningful parts of life cannot be forced. Wisdom grows slowly, understanding develops through experience, and clarity often appears only after you have spent time walking through uncertainty. This realization brings a new sense of patience. You stop expecting life to reveal every answer at once. Instead, you begin appreciating the lessons that appear along the way. Each conversation that changes your perspective, each challenge that strengthens your resilience, each moment of reflection that deepens your understanding. All of these experiences are shaping the person you are becoming. And when you begin viewing life this way, the pressure to hurry disappears. Because you understand that growth is not a race. It is a journey that unfolds at the pace necessary for your character, wisdom, and compassion to develop fully. And that pace, even when it feels slow, is part of the quiet design shaping your path forward. As this patience settles more deeply into your life, you may begin noticing something quietly remarkable. Your sense of direction feels more stable than it once did. There was a time when your path may have felt uncertain, moments when questions about the future created tension, moments when you wondered if you were moving the right way at all. But through reflection, growth, and consistent choices, something has been forming within you, a deeper understanding of who you are becoming. You may not have every answer about the future, and that is completely natural, but you now recognize the values guiding your steps. You know the kind of person you want to be. You understand the principles that bring meaning to your life, and that understanding gives you a quiet confidence. You no longer feel the need to chase every opportunity that appears. You no longer feel pressured to follow paths that do not align with your values. Instead, you continue walking forward with intention, step by step, choice by choice. And as you continue doing this, your life begins reflecting a sense of stability that comes from clarity. Not the kind of clarity that eliminates every challenge, but the kind that reminds you that your journey is moving in a direction shaped by wisdom, patience, and purpose. As your journey continues unfolding with this quiet sense of clarity, you may begin recognizing something deeply encouraging. You are no longer searching the way you once were. There was a time when many questions felt unanswered, when direction seemed uncertain, when the restlessness inside your heart made you wonder if something important was missing. But through reflection, patience, and the steady choices you have been making, that restlessness has slowly transformed. It has turned into awareness. An awareness that your life is not drifting without meaning. It is growing through every lesson you have experienced, every moment you chose honesty instead of convenience, every time you practiced patience instead of frustration, every situation where you remained faithful to the values guiding your path. All of those moments have shaped the person you are becoming, and that person now walks with greater understanding. You recognize that life does not need to be perfect in order to be meaningful. You understand that challenges are part of growth, not proof that something has gone wrong. You see that purpose reveals itself gradually as you continue responding to life with integrity and awareness. This realization creates a quiet sense of fulfillment, not because the journey is finished, but because you now see that every step you take with intention continues moving you toward a life that reflects the meaning you were always searching for. As this understanding settles fully into your heart, one final realization begins to emerge. Your journey was never meant to be about reaching a perfect destination. It was always about becoming the person you were meant to grow into. Every question you faced, every moment of restlessness, every season of reflection and learning, all of it was shaping your awareness, guiding you toward a life that is not driven by pressure, comparison, or endless searching, but by clarity. Clarity about what truly matters, clarity about the values that guide your decisions, clarity about the kind of person you continue choosing to become. When you look at your life through this perspective, you begin recognizing something powerful. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are not drifting without direction. You are walking a path of growth that is unfolding exactly through the lessons you have experienced. And the restlessness that once made you question everything has quietly become the beginning of understanding. Because sometimes the very feeling that unsettles us at first is the same feeling that eventually leads us toward purpose. It slows us down long enough to listen. It encourages us to reflect. It invites us to live with greater honesty and awareness. And when you accept that invitation, something remarkable begins to happen. Life stops feeling like something you must constantly chase or control. Instead, it becomes a journey you walk with intention. One thoughtful step at a time, one meaningful choice at a time. And as you continue moving forward with that awareness, you discover that purpose was never something far away. It has been quietly growing within you all along.